Have you ever felt that, no matter how much you organize, your home never gives you back your energy, only tiredness? That feeling that, even after tidying everything up, the space is still heavy, as if something is out of place, even when everything seems in order? Maybe the problem isn't the mess, but how you're trying to organize. There's a huge difference between a clean home and a home that welcomes you, between a tidy space and an environment that truly regenerates your mind. And often, this difference lies in invisible details, habits, automatic choices, and patterns that you repeat every day without realizing it. Your home may be draining your energy without you even noticing, and this happens so silently that you only realize it when you're already exhausted, discouraged, and feeling like nothing is changing, even after changing everything. And then comes the frustration, the thought that the problem is you, that maybe it's laziness or an inability to keep things in order. But it's not. What no one tells you is that the way you organize, and the reason why you organize, has a direct impact on your energy, your well-being, and the balance of your mind. And that the solution isn't always in following ready-made methods, labeled boxes, or tutorials that promise the perfect home. Because maybe your home is already too organized, but in the wrong way. A way that doesn't respect your routine, that forces you to maintain unattainable standards, that demands more effort than comfort. Maybe you're trying to apply minimalist formulas that don't fit your reality, accumulating more guilt than peace. The truth is that the organization that really works is the one that frees you, and not the one that holds you back by an aesthetic that doesn't speak to your real life. And this organization is practical, possible, and energizing. Now think carefully. What habits do you repeat daily at home that are draining you, even without realizing it? What objects do you keep out of obligation? What routines do you follow out of habit? And what spaces in your home make you feel uncomfortable just by looking at them? Maybe what is stealing your energy is not the mess itself, but the excess of control, of demands, of rigidity. What if I told you that there are ways to reorganize your space that respect your history, your personality, and your energy? You don't need to get rid of everything. You don't need to turn your home into a magazine showroom. You just need to make small changes that make sense to you, that give you back autonomy and lightness. Because when your home starts to work in favor of your energy, everything changes. Your mood improves, your mind slows down, and your productivity flows. And this is not theory. It's environmental science. It's spatial psychology. It's taking care of the way your home speaks to you. And maybe now you're asking yourself, but where do I start? How do I change this routine without becoming overwhelmed? How do I break out of the cycle of tidying up and feeling even more tired afterwards? That's exactly what you'll discover here. Simple habits, applicable, and more than that, habits that give you back your energy instead of draining it. But before I show you how to do this, you need to understand what's really behind the feeling of constant tiredness in your own home. And when you see this clearly, everything will start to change. Your home should be a haven, a place of rest, reconnection, and lightness. But what if, without realizing it, it's draining your energy instead of recharging it? Maybe you feel tired and uneasy, irritable for no apparent reason, or simply that feeling of being overwhelmed all the time, even when you're at home. If this sounds familiar, know that you're not alone. Many people are living in environments that are more draining than welcoming, that demand more than they give, and this has a direct impact on their mind, mood, and even emotional health. But there is a practical and possible way to turn this around. Today, you will understand how the way you organize your home can be influencing your well-being. And more importantly, you will discover simple, easy, and accessible habits that transform the environment without radicalism, without extreme minimalism, and without difficult-to-maintain formulas. These are real changes that you can implement right now, and that will renew your energy, bring more balance to your daily life, and restore the feeling of having a space that works in your favor. And I want to invite you to be part of this transformation. Tell me here in the comments, in one word, how does your home make you feel today? Write honestly. You might be surprised to learn how many people feel the same way. And if you know someone who is constantly complaining about being tired, discouraged, or lacking motivation, it could be that the problem is in the space around them. What you're about to discover could completely change the way you view your home and the impact it has on your mind. Every detail I'm going to show you carries the power to transform not only your physical surroundings, but also your emotional state and the way you feel about living there. So stay with me until the end, because what comes next is what you need to make your home your true charging point. The truth is that many people live a silent cycle of frustration within their own homes, a cycle that begins with the legitimate desire to feel good in their own space, to have an organized, functional home that brings that dreamy feeling of well-being. But this desire, over time, turns into a demand, and before you know it, your home becomes a project of perfection, a setting that demands daily effort, constant maintenance, and that instead of renewing, exhausts you. This feeling is more common than it seems, and it is directly linked to the way we have been conditioned to view organization. There is a widespread idea that keeping your home tidy is a kind of thermometer for self-control, productivity, and personal success, as if a spotless environment were synonymous with a balanced mind. And so, many people demand extremes of themselves to keep everything clean, tidy, and in its place. But this constant expectation, this seemingly unattainable standard of perfection, creates an enormous burden, a recurring feeling of guilt, the feeling of failing at something essential, when in fact, you are just trying to get everything done with the energy you have available. This silent demand invades your routine without asking permission. You wake up with your head full of tasks, look around and see that the sink is full of dishes, the floor needs sweeping, the bed is unmade, and there is a mental list of small things that need to be resolved as soon as possible. But this possible never arrives, because life is in motion, commitments pile up, work demands attention, emotions fluctuate, and the house, which should be a place of rest, becomes yet another source of pressure. And then the internal confusion begins, because even when you try, even when you put real effort into keeping your house organized, the feeling of disorder persists. Your mind remains agitated, your body remains tired, and dissatisfaction sets in. It seems like something is always missing. And the cruelest part of all this is self-criticism. The comparison with what you see on social media, perfectly tidy houses, organized routines down to the smallest detail, people who seem to be able to handle everything with ease. And this silent comparison feeds the idea that you are failing, when, in fact, you are simply living, dealing with the demands of everyday life, with real emotions, and with the complexity of being human within a real home. Organizing your home, when treated as an imposition, becomes an emotional trap. It's like running on a treadmill that never stops. The more you try to achieve perfection, the further away it seems. And this creates fatigue that goes beyond the physical. It's a mental strain, an emotional exhaustion that undermines motivation. People look at the space they live in and, instead of feeling cozy, they feel heavy. Instead of taking a deep breath and relaxing, they feel guilty for everything they haven't managed to do yet. This type of feeling directly affects the energy of the environment. A house may even be clean and visually tidy, but if the organization was done under pressure, it will not convey peace, because the energy of the environment is a reflection of the energy that was deposited in it. If it was built with pressure, with excessive effort, with a feeling of inadequacy, this energy remains there, and the space, even if functional, does not welcome. On the contrary, it demands it back. And the most curious thing is that often this overload is fueled by methods and standards that promise total organization, but ignore the reality of everyday life. Spreadsheets, rigid schedules, extreme minimalism. All of this seems to work on screen, but when applied to a home with a real routine, with a family, with emotions running high, it can generate even more tension. And that's when many people start to doubt themselves. They think that the problem is a lack of discipline, when, in fact, what is missing is an organization system that respects the personal rhythm, the individual routine, and above all, the emotional state of those who live there. The big mistake is to believe that organization is synonymous with rigidity, when in practice, true organization is one that adapts, that accompanies the phases of life, that understands that there are more difficult days, that respects the energy fluctuation, and that welcomes instead of demanding. Because when organization is born from empathy, with oneself and with one's own space, it becomes something light, intuitive, and above all, sustainable. This validation is essential. It is important to understand that feeling tired, even after organizing your home, is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign that something in the process needs to be reviewed, that perhaps you are trying to follow rules that were not made for you, and that yes, it is possible to transform your relationship with your home without having to become someone else. The feeling of well-being, of a balanced mind, and of a welcoming environment does not depend on the amount of things you have or how often you clean the corners. It depends on the intention behind each gesture. It depends on the energy with which you relate to your space. When organization stops being an obligation and becomes a matter of care, everything changes. The environment gains a new vibration. The house begins to give back what you put into it: attention, care, awareness. And that's when the energy really begins to transform. Not because you've reached an external standard, but because you've started to respect your internal standard. Because you've recognized that your house is an extension of your mind, and that by taking care of it with kindness, you're taking care of yourself. The change begins with this recognition, with this permission to be real within a real space. And from here, it's possible to build a practical, light organization that renews your energy, without guilt, without overload, and without the need to fit into molds that don't make sense to you. You've already started to see your home in a new way. You've realized that organization isn't about control, it's about connection, and that well-being begins exactly at this point, when you understand that your home can work in your favor, respecting who you are, how you live, and what you feel. This is just the first step in a much larger journey that we're going to build together here. There's still a lot to transform, many patterns to release, and many ways to reorganize your home so that it becomes a true point of emotional recharge. If this reflection has already sparked something in you, it's because you're in the right place. Here, you'll find real, in-depth, and practical content designed for real people with real lives who want to live in an environment that welcomes, inspires, and balances. And the next step is just ahead. That's why, subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications. Each new video is a continuation of this transformation, a new piece that brings you even closer to the home that nourishes, the energy that flows, and the mind that breathes. You are part of a group that is learning to free itself from perfection and create environments that heal. And being registered here means being in constant contact with content that will help you transform your routine in a gentle way, without ready-made formulas, but with a lot of awareness and truth. So, stay with me. Your home is about to become everything you always needed to feel when you walked through the door. When it comes to organization, many people imagine sterile scenarios, full of rigid rules, cabinets with 3 items folded to the millimeter, and empty shelves that look more like store windows. Images like these have become synonymous with correct organization in the digital age, with influencers showing minimalist homes, surfaces always clean, and everything in its proper little box with a label. And without realizing it, this model has started to create a feeling of inadequacy in those who look at their own homes and don't see themselves in these molds. The truth is that the excessive idealization surrounding organization has distanced many people from the real possibility of living in a light, welcoming, and functional home. Because between total disorder and extreme minimalism, there is a possible path, and that is exactly the path you are building here. Here, organization is not about giving up everything you love. It is not about reducing your life to 3 plates, a chair, and a plant on a white table. The idea is different. It is about creating a functional environment, with meaning, with soul, with history, a space where each item has a reason to be there, because it is part of who you are, where each organizational choice respects your rhythm, your lifestyle, and most importantly, your emotional energy. Many people feel like they are failing in their own homes because they try to fit into ready-made models that don't include children running around the room, busy work days, barely any time for self-care, and a routine that demands a lot of dedication. They try to apply methods that work for those who have time, willingness, and a lifestyle that revolves around maintaining aesthetics. But the reality for most people is different. It is dynamic, full of ups and downs, full of days when the priority is just to keep your head on straight. And, at these times, what matters most is knowing that organizing your home is no longer a burden, it's a support. Practical organization is the kind that adapts to your reality, that understands that life is made of movement, and that the house needs to follow this flow. There is no problem in having sentimental objects, in keeping things that are part of your history, in liking decorations, colors, textures. Your house does not need to be devoid of personality to be functional. Quite the opposite. When the environment reflects who you are, it becomes an emotional support, an anchor for difficult days, a point of safety for when the world outside is turbulent. And this is only possible when you understand that organization is not about aesthetics. It is about emotional functionality. It is when you know where the things you use most are, when you do not feel suffocated by household chores, when the act of taking care of the house fits into your routine in a fluid way, without demanding more from you than you can give at that moment. Lightness lies precisely there, in the possibility of choosing what works for you, and not in following rules that only distance you from well-being. The quest for an organized home doesn't have to involve giving up who you are. Organizing doesn't mean erasing your identity, hiding your emotional mess, or pretending that your life is perfectly folded like the clothes in your drawers. It means creating an environment where your energy flows more easily, where your day is more productive, where moments of pause are truly restorative, and where you feel like you can relax without guilt. Because your home is working for you, not against you. And all of this is possible with small adjustments. There is no need to transform your home into a magazine setting. What transforms is the way you look at it. It is when you start to identify the areas that really drain your energy, the excesses that weigh more than they help, the corners of the house that could work better with a simple reorganization. This transformation begins with awareness, with the understanding that your home has its own language, and that you can teach it a new vocabulary, one that welcomes, understands, and flows with you. This way of seeing organization brings relief, because it assumes that your life is already demanding enough. The last thing you need is yet another demand hidden under the guise of productivity. You deserve to live in a space that follows your journey, without pressuring you to maintain an unattainable standard. And this space can, yes, be beautiful, pleasant, well-distributed, but without giving up your essence. Because a home only transmits peace when it allows you to be whole within it, when it accepts you on good days and chaotic days, when it functions as a gentle reflection of your journey, and not as a stage for a performance that you need to sustain all the time. This is true liberation. It is the moment when you understand that it is possible to live in a well-kept, light, energetically balanced space without having to reduce life to extreme essentialism. Every home has its own dynamics. Every home has its own unique needs, and your home does not need to look like any other. It needs to make sense to you. This is the organization that transforms, the one that respects your history, your style, your routine, and the way you feel in each room. And all of this starts to take shape when you start to look at your home more attentively, when you allow yourself to observe what is demanding attention, what is generating noise, and what can be adjusted to benefit your mind, your mood, your productivity, and even the quality of your rest. Because yes, your home influences all of this, and every choice you make within it, from the arrangement of the furniture to the habit of leaving a space for breaks free from stimuli, has the power to completely change the rhythm of your days and the way you feel about living them. The energy of the environment you build directly reflects your internal energy, and that's why true organization is the one that starts with the meaning of your choices. It's when you begin to understand that less is not the only way, but rather that right, it's what makes sense in your real life, your home, your rhythm, your energy. The lightness is there, and from here, everything starts to align with what you really need to feel. When you understand that your home can be built with freedom, with affection, and with choices that respect who you are, something inside you starts to change. The air feels lighter, your eyes see more smoothly, and even the way you walk through your rooms changes. This is already happening here. This reconnection with your space has already begun, and it will only grow. Each word shared in this video is a seed planted towards more conscious, more alive, and more truthful environments. And when you feel that this content speaks directly to your story, your routine, and the way you want to live, this feeling of identification can also be extended to other people who are seeking the same transformation. Liking this video is more than a technical gesture. It's a way to let this message gain strength, spread this lightness, and touch other homes that also need to breathe more calmly. You already know the impact that this new perspective can have. It is reflected in the details of your routine, in the small adjustments you make each day, and in the silent relief of realizing that you are no longer trying to fit into a pattern that doesn't suit you. The lightness that your home deserves starts with simple decisions, and liking this content is one of those choices, one that expands this conversation, that gives more people space to take a deep breath and understand that organization and well-being can, indeed, go hand in hand with authenticity and presence. This is a collective movement, and each support for this idea makes it go further. A home with more positive energy, more awareness, and more balance is not built alone. It becomes stronger when more people are part of this change. So now that this new vision has begun to take hold in your home, make this gesture of continuity. It is also part of the transformation. What many people experience, without even being able to name it, is a constant exhaustion that comes not only from what happens outside the home, but from what silently repeats itself inside it. There is a direct, visceral connection between the disorganization of the environment and the vital energy of those who live there. And this goes far beyond aesthetics. It is about how the space communicates with the body, mind, and emotions in a permanent way. Every object out of place, every accumulation that settles in forgotten corners, every surface that prevents you from breathing visually, adds layers of noise inside you. And this noise turns into heaviness, mental confusion, inexplicable irritability, a tiredness that seems to come from nowhere, but which, in fact, is coming from everywhere around you. Disorganized environments trigger a feeling of constant alertness in the human brain. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for decision-making and emotional control, responds to this excess of visual stimulation as a sign of threat, generating stress and anxiety even when the body is still. And that is why, even when sitting on the couch or lying in bed, a person feels restless, as if something inside them is bothering them, demanding attention, taking away their focus. A disorganized environment acts as a silent reminder of everything that needs to be done, everything that is pending, everything that is yet to be resolved. And what should be a space for rest becomes a mental battlefield. Environmental psychology has been studying the impact of physical space on human emotions and behavior for decades. One consensus among researchers is that visual overload directly interferes with mental clarity. This means that the more things that are exposed, misaligned, accumulated, or out of context, the harder it becomes to relax, think clearly, and restore energy. On the other hand, when the environment is flowing with the routine of the home, with visual harmony, practical functionality, and a feeling of lightness, the central nervous system understands that it can let its guard down, that it is safe, and begins to naturally regenerate internal balance. This logic is visible in everyday life. You enter a room where the bed is unmade, clothes are piled up on a chair, objects are scattered on the floor, and your first reaction is restlessness. Even if there is no conscious thought about it, your body responds. Your breathing becomes shallower. Your eyes dart from one corner to the other seeking focus. Your mind starts thinking about what needs to be done there. This pattern of stimulus and response repeats itself throughout the day and spreads throughout the house. A kitchen with dishes piled up makes it difficult to prepare a light meal. A corner of the living room with forgotten papers and boxes makes it difficult to rest. A disorganized closet makes getting dressed a stressful task. And when this spreads throughout the home, the result is a domestic life that demands a lot of the emotional energy of those who live it and gives little in return. That's why organization goes beyond physical order. It's about deep self-care. It's a way of communicating to your mind and body that your space is ready to welcome, restore, and protect you. And that doesn't mean living in an impersonal setting. It means living in an environment that respects your cycles, that works with your routine, and that triggers a sense of well-being from the first few minutes you walk through the door. Your home stops being just another source of stress and becomes a place to recharge your batteries. There is a story that illustrates this well. A woman, going through a phase of emotional exhaustion, reported feeling that she was always tired, even though she slept well and took care of her health. She worked from home and said that as soon as she sat down at the table, she felt a weight on her body. During a conversation with a therapist specializing in environmental psychology, she was encouraged to do a simple exercise, walk around the entire house and observe what caused her visual, physical, or emotional discomfort. And she realized that, although the environment was relatively clean, there was an accumulation of objects in almost every corner. Stacked papers, overflowing shelves, improvised corners, with things that had no fixed place. It was like living in a space that constantly reminded her that something was unfinished. So she began, in small steps, to reorganize these spaces. She removed the excess, gave new functions to forgotten furniture, and left surfaces free. In less than a week, she reported feeling clearer, more focused, and most importantly, less tired, even without changing anything in her diet or sleep routine. This happens because the mind responds immediately to the environment. When the eyes find fluidity, the brain understands that it can enter a state of rest. When the body moves in a functional space, without visual or physical obstacles, vital energy circulates more freely, and this circulation directly impacts mood, disposition, and even the way we deal with everyday challenges. A balanced environment does not eliminate problems, but it strengthens the ability to face them with more serenity. This is the central point of conscious organization, understanding that the environment has a direct impact on your vitality, that each organizational choice is, in fact, a choice about how you want to feel within your own life, that each corner tidied with intention gives back a portion of your energy, while each meaningless accumulation takes away a part of it. And when this becomes clear, taking care of the home ceases to be an obligation and becomes a strategy for well-being, emotional protection, and reconnection with what really matters. Your body notices the signs even before you can think about them. When your home is out of balance, you feel it. You feel it in the way you sleep, the way you wake up, the way you eat, and even the way you relate to others. When the space where you live is not flowing, life stops. Decisions seem harder, conflicts become more important, and even moments of rest become less effective. But on the contrary, when your home begins to align with your intentions, with your purpose of living more lightly, it begins to silently return everything you offer it. And this positive cycle grows stronger with each small change, with each choice that arises from the awareness that your physical space is also your emotional space, with each gesture of care that affirms, I can breathe in here. Amidst so many responsibilities, demands, and daily movements, recognizing that the space in which you live can be a source of exhaustion or renewal is a profound step towards awareness. When this reality sinks in, everything starts to reposition itself. Priorities change. The way you look at each corner of your home changes, and a simple gesture, like opening an organized drawer or leaving a surface free, begins to carry meaning. It is in this sensitivity that the movement begins to gain strength. The environment stops being a stage and becomes a living extension of what you feel, think, and need. And when this energy begins to circulate more fluidly, the house begins to respond with more welcome, more mental silence, more internal space. And it is at this turning point that many people realize that they are not alone, that there are other people going through the same process of discovery, of realignment, of transforming the home into a refuge, of organization into emotional care. A simple phrase, a silent acknowledgement, can seal this new understanding. Leaving this recorded, even in a few words, creates a link with everything that is being experienced here. Leaving the phrase, my house, gives me back energy. It's not just a comment, it's a declaration of change. It's the beginning of a new way of being in your own home. And as you write this, something inside you also begins to reorganize itself. Because when the house flows, life begins to flow with it. And being part of this cycle is more than sharing, it's expanding. There is a way to take care of your home that doesn't weigh you down, doesn't require superhuman effort, and doesn't become just another suffocating goal in your day. On the contrary, it brings lightness, presence, and reconnection with what really matters. It acts directly on your energy because it was designed based on how the body and mind work. And that's why creating simple but consistent habits within your home can have a huge impact on your emotional, mental, and even physical routine. Small actions have the power to change the vibration of your home, and consequently, your life. One of the most powerful ways to apply this in practice is through organization by energy zones. Each space in your home communicates an intention. The corner where you rest, for example, should be a sanctuary of slowing down, silence, and calm. When this space is mixed with an accumulation of objects, papers, clothes, or items that do not belong there, the mind receives confusing messages. A place that should signal rest becomes, without you realizing it, a point of tension. It's like going to sleep with the feeling that there is something to resolve. And this tension, even subtle, directly interferes with the quality of your rest and your emotional recovery. By dividing your home into energy zones, such as a rest zone, a creative zone, a movement zone, and a nourishment zone, you facilitate the flow of well-being throughout your day. The rest zone, for example, needs to be free of excess. The bed needs to have visual space around it. The tones can be softer, and objects that convey memories or affection should be within the visual field. In the creative zone, where you study, work, or idealize your projects, the elements need to stimulate mental clarity and creativity. Here, lighting is essential, as well as free surfaces that do not overload the senses, and so on. Each part of your home should function with a clear emotional function, and this avoids the silent wear and tear of living in an environment where everything is mixed together, where no energy is completely organized. And even if your energy is low, even if your day has been exhausting, it is still possible to start the transformation with a powerful and extremely accessible strategy: the 5-item ritual. It is simple. Choose 5 things to adjust, store, or reorganize. Just 5. It could be a pillow that you put back on the couch, a glass that you take to the sink, a towel that you hang up correctly, a book that you put back on the shelf, a rug that you straighten. These are small gestures that can be done in 2 or 3 minutes, but that activate in the brain the feeling of regaining control. What previously seemed impossible, what was previously chaotic and out of your reach, begins to reorganize itself. And in this process, your mind understands that there is indeed room for change, even if it is small. It is like pressing an internal restart button, a reminder that you are still present inside your home, even on difficult days. And here comes an essential line. If you feel like you can't do anything, just do 5 things and stop. That will change the rhythm of your day. And it works because, unlike rigid organizational rules, this habit respects your current emotional energy. You don't need a whole plan to get started. You just need one decision: to make 5 adjustments in your own way, in your own time, and let the environment gradually return this energy to you. Another simple and powerful habit is the evening ritual. No matter how long your day is, there is something deeply restorative about ending the cycle with small gestures that welcome you. Before you go to sleep, choose 2 or 3 actions that will make the next morning lighter. It could be putting away the dinner dishes, tidying the couch, folding the blanket in the living room, wiping the kitchen counter with a damp cloth, or setting the bedroom lights to soft light. What matters is not the action itself, but the intention. When you end the day with this type of gesture, your mind understands that the environment is ready to welcome you when you wake up, and this changes the quality of your sleep, your mood, and the way you start the next day. Creating this closure is a way to end cycles with kindness and make room for lightness in the morning. And to further enhance this feeling of care and balance, you can use so-called well-being anchor objects. These are visual, sensory, or symbolic elements that act as physical reminders of tranquility and connection. Choose 3. A potted plant that transmits calm, a candle with a scent that comforts you, an amber lamp that softens the environment, a diffuser, a painting, a cushion. These objects are not mere decorations. They act directly on the nervous system through sensory memory, affective association, and visual repetition. Every time you see them, your brain registers that you are in a safe, pleasant place that respects you. These anchors create micro-mental breaks, which throughout the day have a real impact on your emotional well-being. And finally, sensory organization. This is one of the most overlooked, but most powerful ways to transform the energy of your home. When you care for your home with your senses in mind, everything else is elevated. The smell of a well-kept space, for example, has the power to immediately alter your emotional state. Scents like lavender, lemongrass, vanilla, or eucalyptus trigger memories of comfort and security. Soft sounds, like an instrumental playlist, sounds of nature, or even silence chosen with intention, create a soothing soundscape. And light, light, is responsible for much of mood regulation. Investing in warm, indirect, and adjustable lighting transforms any room into a welcoming space. These sensory elements make your home speak to you in a gentler way, and when you respond with your senses, you respond with your entire body, calming down, regulating, and finding yourself again. These habits, as simple as they may seem, are not just practical suggestions. They are portals to a new way of living in your home and your routine. They activate vital energy, restore mental clarity, and create real spaces of presence. And when this presence is established, you begin to feel the difference not only in the environment, but in yourself, because your internal and external space begin to walk together, and everything takes on more meaning. Now that you've experienced firsthand how small gestures can transform the rhythm of a home and the quality of its energy, imagine how many other people might need exactly that: a break, a breather, a new perspective on the place they live. Sharing this video is much more than spreading a tip or showing something beautiful. It's like turning on a soft light in another home. It's like opening a window in a house where the air seemed too heavy. It's allowing someone else to discover that lightness doesn't require perfection. It requires intention. Each time this message spreads, a new cycle of care begins in another corner of the world. A sofa is tidied up with more care. A sink is emptied with more awareness. A night ends with more peace. And it all starts with a simple gesture, expanding what has already made sense to you. When you share, you also transform. You create an invisible link between people who may not even know they are looking for the same thing you have already started to find. A home that welcomes, a routine that respects, a house that gives energy back. Let's make this chain circulate, because a lighter house starts inside, but gains strength when it reaches the outside. You don't need to fit your life into a set mold. There is no ideal format, no universal formula, no standard to be achieved in order to feel that your home is truly functioning. What you need is a space that respects the way you live, feel, and move every day. A space that keeps up with the rhythm of your routine, that embraces your lighter days, and also those in which everything seems out of place. Your home can, and should, be a reflection of what you value, what gives you meaning, what strengthens your emotional and mental energy. The idea that there is only one right way to organize, to take care of the home, to keep everything in order, creates an unnecessary burden. And this burden accumulates along with the internal demands, until the simple act of tidying up a drawer seems to carry the same weight as solving a huge problem. But it doesn't have to be that way. Organization can be a gentle language between you and the space you inhabit, a dialogue made up of small gestures, conscious choices, and full attention, care that happens with simplicity, and for that very reason, with much more depth. You have already taken an important step. You have already allowed this new perspective to enter your home, even if only subtly, and that is exactly where change begins, when you begin to see the environment as an ally, and not as an invisible enemy that constantly demands your attention. This awareness changes everything. It changes the way you enter your home, how you breathe when you walk through the door, how you sit down to have a coffee, how you choose where to put that object that has always been leaning in a corner. Every detail begins to have intention, and when there is intention, there is care, and where there is care, there is transformation. You don't need a minimalist home with impeccable shelves, light-colored furniture, and few objects. What you need is a home that aligns with your story, that carries your memories without weighing you down, that reflects your choices without rigidity, that has space for your energy to circulate with ease, that knows how to be silent when you need peace, and alive when you want to express yourself. A home that is in harmony with your state of mind and with the cycles that are part of your journey. Simple changes have this power. They break the cycle of overload. They show your brain that there is, indeed, a possible path between chaos and perfection, a middle ground where lightness resides, a real comfort zone, not in the sense of stagnation, but as fertile ground where your routine can grow more peacefully. And this realization is relieving, because from it you understand that you are not in debt to your space. You are in dialogue with it, and this dialogue can be kinder every day, creating rituals of care, reorganizing what is asking for attention, taking breaks to observe what needs lightening. All of this is motivated by a legitimate desire for well-being, a desire that starts small, sometimes just as an annoyance with the disorder, but that quickly turns into action. When you understand that you don't need to wait for perfect conditions, that you don't need to wait until you have time, disposition, or energy that seems unattainable. Just start with a gesture. With 5 items a day, with a change of lighting, with a corner prepared to welcome you. And that is enough for the movement to gain strength within you. You are not rebuilding your home. You are rebuilding your relationship with it. You are exchanging the weight of obligation for the lightness of belonging. You are leaving automatic mode and starting to feel again. You are allowing your environment to give you back what you give it: attention, presence, intention. And even if the process is gradual, each step counts, because each step represents a conscious choice not to give up your well-being. Your home doesn't need to impress anyone. It needs to take care of you. And this care starts with the details, with what is within your reach right now, with the gesture you can make today, effortlessly but with presence, with a closer look at what can be adjusted, improved, simplified. When you put intention into what you do within your space, you put yourself back at the center of your own life, and that is priceless. This is motivation that comes from within. This is organization with soul. You are already in this process. You have already begun to transform not only the place where you live, but the way you live within it. And that is reason enough to keep going, to continue, day after day, discovering how your home can be more yours, how it can be your refuge, your point of strength, your space for regeneration, and all this without rigid formulas, without rigidity, without the demand for a standard, only with the truth of what works for you, with the elements that make sense, with the rituals that reconnect you, with the organization that respects your energy, and that for this very reason gives you back more energy than it demands. This is the path you are on now, a path made up of conscious choices, restorative pauses, and a new way of inhabiting your own space, a path that begins with the environment, but soon expands to everything: your emotions, your productivity, your rest, your relationships. Because everything changes when the place where you live aligns with how you feel. And this alignment, however subtle it may seem, is what creates a solid foundation for everything you want to build in your life. It starts right here, where you are, and continues with you, step by step, on your journey to well-being within your home. And when you start looking at your home with this new perspective, lighter, more conscious, more respectful of your energy, something inside you organizes itself too. This movement has already begun. You are no longer at the starting point. You are in the flow of real, sensitive, possible transformation. And with each small choice you make within your space, you are saying yes to a life more aligned with what really matters. Now tell me with an open heart, which corner of your home is draining you the most today? That place that seems to carry a silent weight. You can write here in the comments. Because yes, I read every word carefully, and I can prepare a special video to help you transform this very point of tension into a space that renews your energy. This channel is about that, building environments together that take care of our emotional health, our presence, our peace. And if this content has touched you in some way, if a phrase has turned on a light, if a practice has awakened that desire to act with more kindness in your home, leaving your like here is more than a gesture of support. It is a sign that this message makes sense. It is an impulse that helps this content reach other people who are also seeking greater well-being at home and in life. And yes, there is a next step. Subscribing to the channel is not just a click. It is a commitment to your process. Being here means being part of a community that chooses to take care of the house in a genuine way, without pressure, without extremism, but with presence and awareness. And I want to walk with you in each new video, bringing practical, deep, and realistic content that respects your routine and strengthens your energy. Oh, and if you haven't seen it yet, the previous video is a must-see. In it, I talk about how small changes in perception can completely transform the way you relate to your home. It's worth watching and connecting these lessons even more. Thank you for being here, for allowing yourself to feel, reflect, and transform. Every time you return to this space, you feed a chain of care that begins within and expands to the world around you. Because yes, everything begins with the way we live. And never forget, your home is an extension of your balance. Take care of it, and it will take care of you.